Segment of the show for today. The guest is Professor Pickard from Tennessee State University and Middle Tennessee State University, and he's talking about some of the problems dealing with Somalia, especially the recent Somalia pirate crises. And of course, Professor Pickard, let's pick up where we left off. And during this last segment, let's see if we might be able to lay down some ground rules in reference to what the United States could or should do in reference to this. And not only the United States, but Western nations that are in a more privileged situation than some of these states find themselves in.
First of all, one reason why I wrote the article on the Tennessee, and I wish they'd run it in the print edition, but they only put it online, is that I think the country should become more aware of these problems because they affect us directly. Of course, if pirates are interrupting shipping in one of the most important shipping lanes in the world, then that affects us. It really does. And if we have to send in the Navy or maybe even pull the Coast Guard in there to do this, and other countries have to, then that's an expensive thing to worry about. It would be less expensive to try to prevent those problems in the first place. I think as far as, well, I'm very much for humanitarian aid and for development aid. Now, in the case of Somalia in the early 80s, I really believe that the donor nations should have met with the Somali government and said, we're really tired of this, and if you don't get it together, we're going to pull out of here. And that would have been tough love, but the refugees would have voted with their feet and gone somewhere else if they weren't.
This is all corruption in terms of how they were using the financial, the aid and other things.
Exactly. You know, they're diverting a lot of supplies. One good thing with the area where I was, the people there were a little more reasonable than the authorities there were a little more reasonable than they were otherwise. We did have a problem in the representative is the top person here. He's like the equivalent of an ambassador. He's a UNHCR representative. When I first came, it was a person named Art DeFair, who was from Canada, a businessman there, and he wasn't a UNHCR professional. And they brought him in to kind of make some changes, kick some butt. And he did, but he was not a very diplomatic man. Now, the person who came in was basically a sycophant who replaced him, Mr. Blavo, who was from Ghana. And in my presence, he went around all over saying, the Americans are causing all these problems. I don't know what the Americans are doing. Well, of course, Americans have an interest in it if they're the donors. I saw the USAID. This is the first time the United States Agency for International Development got into a refugee case. And they, I think, did a good job trying to challenge the government on a lot of this stuff. Now, first of all, you have to, of course, balance the humanitarianism with the practicality, kind of a pH balanced policy, I guess you'd say. And then, but I also believe that we have to do more to try to help these countries develop their economies. We would not have the Mexican economic migrants that we have now if we had done more to help Mexico develop its economy. Sometimes the Mexicans themselves put some barriers in there. They remember that we fought a war with them, and even if most of our students, as you know, don't know that. And I think we need to do, well, we certainly need to do more about controlling our guns here. People from all over the world are coming to the United States now to purchase guns. They're amazed how lax it is to purchase any kind of gun. And we need to do more public education. I spoke recently with Secretary Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State, who spoke at Vanderbilt, and talked to her about when she first came into office, she wanted to take the foreign policy on the road, do more public education. That did not work out well. She had a very ugly incident at Ohio State with some demonstrators, and it went all over the world. So those are the things we need to be doing, and one reason I wrote the article and one reason I try to do more is to try to help the public understand what's going on and how it affects us and what we must do about it.
Now, what about the United Nations, looking at in your study dealing with that? I know that they've characterized some of these states as narco states and et cetera, but what are they doing in reference to all of this chaos? Because this is general chaos in an entire section of Africa, all over East Africa, is it not?
I'm not sure about all over East Africa. I think Kenya and Celeste, I look, Tanzania are pretty much stable. Most of those countries, so you've got, of course, in southern Africa, you've got the problem with, well, I wanted to say Rwanda, but not Rwanda. That's kind of stabilized a little bit. You've got in Zimbabwe, I started to say Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, they, of course, lately has been a basket case. This man has taken, you know, the jewel of Africa, one of the most, in terms of natural resources and all kinds of things, and had the farmers there, the white farmers who were producing so well, and basically turned it into a basket case, and people are leaving. They've got inflation like Germany's was in 1923. The Congo, formerly Zaire, we backed before, well, we backed Mobutu, President Mobutu, who stole the country blind. He was like Marcos in the Philippines. He basically, like $8 billion in the Swiss bank accounts, and meanwhile their teachers not getting paid. Again, a country with lots of natural resources. If they're managed correctly, I think this would be a developed country. You have some good points. Liberia was put on a list of Foreign Policy magazine's list of 10 worst countries at one time. Now they are doing a very good job under their new president, who was on the on the Jon Stewart show, Daily Show recently, talking about her book, and she has been a very productive leader. I hope to see more from her. I believe that the people in the current Obama administration, they are not ideologues, they're very practical people. And I think that they will be very sensitive to these problems in a way that the Bush administration certainly was not. The Bush administration, for one thing, because of their domestic coalition, was trying to cut any kind of family planning aid to or ending it for a lot of countries. They were not as pro-development as they should be. And
well, do you believe over the last 2 or 3 minutes that the policy that we have can materially affect some of these countries? I mean, our policies and what we do and what we do not do?
Oh yes, absolutely. We're a part of a world. It's you know, one author said the world is flat. I'm not sure about that, but basically I pick up on my phone and we get somebody in India or somebody in another country, and whatever we're doing here is affecting other countries. I would like to see more done to help industrialize in Africa. They're going to get some what we call sweatshops, but if we can, you know, do so, industrialize in such a way that the people are not, you know, as they were at the turn of the 20th century in this country, working 20 hours a day and have child labor and 7 days a week. And if they can get a decent wage and some benefits, health care, that sort of thing, I think that's an important part of it. We need to do more to protect our environment because, you know, we're going to have countries literally covered with water, with millions of refugees. Mr. Gore was right about that. I'm very proud to have worked for Mr. Gore, and I think it was one of the great missed opportunities when, quite frankly, the election was stolen in 2000, in my view. And whether it was or not, I think it was a great missed opportunity. He was not there. I think he would have been addressing these issues. He understood them. And so you've got that development, environment, public education about, in this country, about foreign policy and improving education around the world. Of course, now we've got diseases, the disease question, and that's affecting us every day with the transportation the way it is. And you know, a couple of hundred years ago, it would take months to get from one country to another, maybe a month to get from one state to another.
And so in a real sense, what goes on in Africa will have a tremendous impact upon us.
Absolutely.
Almost in every area.
And vice versa. And of course, Africa is an enormous continent. Somalia itself is bigger than Texas, and Sudan is about twice the size of Texas. Of course, Sudan is another state, dysfunctional state, another one we have to worry about. Quite frankly, I worry about our sending missiles in. I mean, that's maybe there's a place for that, but we're killing a lot of civilians when we do that, and that doesn't help us. We're creating more terrorists, as we did, I think, when we invaded Iraq.
Okay, and of course, let me thank you, Professor Pickard, for bringing us that excellent information and at least giving us an overview in terms of the kind of challenges that we face, the United States, the Western world, face in Africa, but you believe that these challenges, in a real sense, can be overcome. Is that right?
Right, and I believe through shows like yours, we can do more to educate the general public.
Very good. And of course, let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.